So hey anime fans. The series name is What If Naruto Got Harem with Pokemon? So let's start the series. In the dim light of the campfire, Naruto moaned and gritted his teeth while examining the map he had picked up in the previous town they were at. I'm having trouble finding this route on this site. He turned the map around and cocked his head. Am I misinterpreting this? He was attempting to calculate the amount of time left before they arrived at the next town. His and his sister's birthdays were nearly 2 weeks ago. On their route to the next town, Naruto, and Cute Ninja were now spending the night in a camp. With Naruto Dad popping the question to Naruto Mom, the celebration had ended well. The Naruto student had once again slept over with his crew. When they awoke the following morning, Jason, Eva, and Lance had already departed before daybreak. Along with a note thanking Naruto's mother for the hospitality, Jason left 3 sets of dog tags for Naruto, and Cute Ninja. Saito and Jackson left later that day. The following day, Luna said goodbye to them and returned to the Teak region with her son Pip and bodyguard Leo. The adorable ninja returned later in the evening after going home to prepare her belongings. After breakfast the following morning, the 3 of them set off once more to continue their trek. 2 days after leaving Hyde Ninja Village town, during a thunderstorm, they came upon an Illumise dancing in the rain while they searched for some cover, which they located behind a tree with an almost impenetrable canopy. Naruto proposed that they make camp with their tents this time once they understood that the rain would not be stopping anytime soon. The dancing Illumise continued to ignore them as they erected the tents. Cute Ninja made the decision that she wanted that Illumise after they ate dinner, within the tents, consisting of instant ramen, potato chips, and water. She grabbed some empty Pokeballs, left the tent she and Naruto shared, and approached the unaware bug type. Using her Riolu, Duke, she battled the wild Pokemon. Cute Ninja had a hard time because of the Illumise. And weary Riolu and 3 broken Pokeballs later, the Illumise was hers. She gave it the name Flutter. The Pokeball vanished away very instantly after being picked up from the muddy floor. They got to Kanai town just as the Harvest Festival was getting underway. A mock contest and a mini-battle tournament were held. Cute Ninja entered the competition, and Naruto and Naruto signed up for the fights. Officer Jenny, Nurse Joy, and the mayor of the town judged the competition, while a police officer officiated the tournament. In the last match, Naruto faced Naruto, who prevailed this time thanks to her Turtwig. In the appeals round, Cute Ninja employed her Lopunny, and she won with her recently obtained Illumise. Cute Ninja was given a Pokemon egg with blue triangles and red squares all over it, while Naruto was given a set of Pokemon vitamin pills as a prize. Fortunately, she still had the incubator in which she had previously kept Duke's egg, so she put it in there. The following day, they set out for Waterfall Town, where they would compete in the Cute Ninja event. A sizable contingent of Shroomish attacked them shortly after lunch. On a whim, Naruto grabbed a Pokemon while they repelled the wild ones. He gave it the name Brawler because it was a male and still wanted to fight after being captured. Furthermore, he was having more problems with this small grass type than Witchy. He would pick a quarrel with any wild or domesticated Pokemon it came across. Its teammates, and Naruto and Cute Ninja's Pokemon were no exception. It also frequently left its Pokeball by itself, which greatly upset Naruto. Just before the Cute Ninjas contest, they reached Waterfall Town. With 1 extra day. During her Pokemon training, Spray the Prinplup changed into Empoleon as she struggled to decide which to employ. Aqua Jet, a new move, was also taught to it. Her decision was aided by her starter's abrupt transformation. She utilized Spray for the fight round and borrowed Flo the Love Disc from Naruto for the appeals round. Cute Ninja advanced to the second round because of Flo. Her luck ended there, even though she advanced to the last match. John, her last opponent, was a blue-eyed, blonde-haired boy who employed a Charizard. Despite her type advantage, the fire type outclassed the Empoleon in a show of strength, speed, and agility. It beat Spray with a close-range blast burn. While the boy was getting the ribbon, Naruto, Cute Ninja, and Naruto noticed what appeared to be dog tags hanging from his neck and on the black-haired, gray-eyed girl who was with him. They vanished before they could approach them to inquire about the dog tags. When they passed the train station on their way to resume their journey the following day, they noticed the contestant boy and girl getting on a train. They knew they would run into them again after looking at their own dog tags, but not until Naruto got a map at the police kiosk. Here they are, camping a few days later. Naruto is also attempting to interpret the map. She had her gloss, cuddled up next to Naruto while she slept, and the cute ninja was cleaning and brushing her lopuni, heart. When cute ninja was done, she turned to Naruto after hearing him grumble for the past half hour, asking, "What's wrong? The route we're on isn't on here." She rose, took the chart, and sat down next him. Adorable ninja looked at the map. "No wonder you can't find it. This map is outdated and over 20 years old." Naruto lowered his head in shame and said, "Oh." She said, "Why not use your pokenav? It comes with a map." He said shyly, "I've kind of forgotten mine at home," while she stroked the back of his head. Adorable ninja laughed and stood up. "I'll check in mine." Naruto gazed up at the night sky while she rummaged through her bag. Because of the slight breeze, he could still smell the rain in the distance even though there were no clouds in the sky. The sound of a pokenav coming on made him gaze at cute ninja again. According to the map on the small screen, "It says here that we'll be at Demon City tomorrow," she said. "Okay," Naruto said with a nod. "We'll stop there and get you your 4th ribbon, and after that is Orchestra City for my 7th badge." "Yeah," said cute ninja. "Now let's get some sleep." They stood on a grassy hill the following morning, gazing in wonder at Demon City's magnificence. The edge of a ravine that led into a canyon was a few hundred yards away. The huge brick building's windows glinted brightly in the sunlight. A big white building with a huge dome structure attached was the one closest to the canyon at the city's edge. Temples could be seen all over the city. On the opposite side of the city was the recognizable contest hall. After asking, "So this Demon City, huh?" Naruto flung and impressed a whistle. "Yep," said Naruto, glancing at her pokenav. "It says here that it got that name because of an event that happened here a little over 1,000 years ago." She continued to read. "There are 17 temples all over the city, and the most visited is the Fire Temple." "What's that building over there?" Cute ninja pointed at the white one. "Some sort of research lab," murmured Naruto. Naruto interrupted himself when he noticed Han constantly scratching himself. "Does it say what kind of research he asked. "Han, what's wrong?" Naruto grabbed up the Pikachu out of concern and examined him as he continued to scratch. To make matters worse, Gloss and Duke were both frantically scratching themselves, which prompted Naruto and cute ninja to take them up with concern. "Huh, what's this?" Naruto gasped when he pushed back Han's yellow fur and found his skin damaged, due to the scratching, and covered with purple patches. "What the heck?" cried Naruto upon discovering the same item beneath the gray fur of her Glamour. Cute ninja whispered, "Oh my, this looks bad," as she looked at her Riolu. They ran along the path with their Pokémon in their arms, determined to get to a Pokémon Center as soon as possible. As they waited for Nurse Joy at the Pokémon Center's front counter, Naruto, and cute ninja fidgeted nervously. Waiting their turn as their Pokémon continued to scratch had been nerve-wracking. Naruto was tapping her fingers on the counter so quickly and rhythmically that it seemed like it may pierce through it. After escorting a trainer's injured Cricketun to one of the recovery chambers, Nurse Joy quickly returned. After she said, "Next in line, please," the three placed their Pokémon on the counter. "What seems to be the problem?" The explanation from Naruto was, "Our Pokémon won't stop scratching." The chancy assistant brought a gurney over, and Nurse Joy nodded. Okay, just place your critters on the gurney and I'll go give them a look over, she said. If you'd like, I could also give the rest of your teams a checkup. They placed their Pokeballs on trays and their scratching Pokemon on the gurney. After that, Nurse Joy carried the trays behind the chancy as she pushed the gurney to the back. She said, just before the doors closed behind her, I'll be back later with the results. Since the run was driven solely by adrenaline, and they were now exhausted and hungry, they kept thinking, please don't let it be serious, as they made their way to the eating area. They returned to the front counter just as Nurse Joy and her chancy came back from the rear with their Pokemon 20 minutes after they had finished eating a lot. The chancy moved the gurney in front of them with Han, Gloss, and Duke, and they were still clawing as if their lives depended on it. All finished, Nurse Joy chirped as she placed the trays containing the Pokeballs on the counter. There was never anything to really worry about. It's just a strong reaction to a Pokerus infection, that all. Naruto tilted her head and repeated, a Pokerus infection? What's that? Inquired Cute Ninja. It's a pretty harmless condition and most Pokemon that contract Pokerus don't suffer any side effects, responded Nurse Joy. Once the Pokerus is gone, your Pokemon will never contract it again. Next in line, please. Naruto and Naruto grimaced, and they and Cute Ninja took their Pokeballs and Pokemon, and proceeded to the video phone connected to the transfer machine. They did not totally believe what Nurse Joy had said, because this looked like an airhead them. They asked someone they trusted for their advice and views. While standing behind Naruto mumbled, come on, pick up, pick up, pick up, while their Pokemon continued to itch themselves frantically. Professor Sarutobi's lab, how can I? Ebisu hesitated and adjusted his sunglasses as soon as he saw the blonde twins on the other end of the line. Good morning, Miss Hyuga, he said, turning to the adorable ninja. Now what do you two want? He asked Naruto and Naruto. Is the old man there? Naruto questioned. We need to ask him something. After observing them for a while, the lab assistant nodded. I will see if he's available. The three of them resumed their squirming as Ebisu vanished and the television displayed the lab's plain white walls, which were unadorned and uninteresting. After a few minutes, Professor Sarutobi showed up and took a seat in the chair facing the TV screen, holding a pipe. The three of them felt a little more at ease because he appeared to be in a pleasant mood. Good afternoon, you three. So what is it that you need to ask me? Naruto waved him over and said, Old man, is Pokerus dangerous? Nurse Joy said it isn't, but... With an interested expression, the professor asked, Why do you guys want to know about Pokerus? For the professor to see, they positioned their Pokemon in front of the screen. Naruto added, It's making them so itchy, with concern. Professor Sarutobi placed his fingers against his chin and thought. That's really unusual. Pokemon that have contracted Pokerus don't normally suffer any negative side effects. And those few that do don't experience anything severe. Is there any medicine or ointment that we could use? Cute Ninja said. I'm afraid not. The old man shook his head. Because Pokerus never hurts the Pokemon, no company or research group has bothered with it. But don't worry, once the Pokerus has run its course, your Pokemon will never contract it again. Under his breath, Naruto mumbled, Man, that sucked. If you'd like, you could send them over and I could try a few tricks, Sarutobi suggested with a shrug. And while they're here, I might as well collect data for possible future cases. The trio hesitated for a time before consenting. After returning their scratching Pokemon to their Pokeballs, they dispatched them to the laboratory. Okay, Pokemon received, Professor Sarutobi remarked, reaching off-screen to remove the Pokeballs from the transport machine. Now which Pokemon would you like me to send you? The three of them considered it for a while. Well, they were knocked to the ground when the ground started to buck and heave. Windows broke, objects fell off shelves, and people yelled in fear. The lights, including the videophone screen, flickered before entirely dying out, leaving the Pokemon Center in almost complete darkness. And it stopped as abruptly as it had started. The first person to stand up was Naruto, who assisted Naruto and Cute Ninja in standing up. Once up, they blinked at the chaos in the room. The silence was broken by Naruto. Holy crap! That was an earthquake! No duh, sis! After removing their hats off the ground, Naruto and Naruto put them back on their heads and evaluated the damage. Experiencing a real earthquake was a first for them. Indeed, they experienced the move earthquake, the intensity varying magnitude, and the one-hit knockout assault fissure. Although their movements had a very strong shake, they were largely limited to the battlefield. In contrast, this was felt across Demon City and possibly a few miles beyond. The three of them could see some of the devastation outside through the windows as they walked to the main lobby. There were some fallen trees, cracked sidewalks, shattered windows on the older buildings, and other buildings that had acquired some cracks and a minor tilt. But that was all. No buildings collapsing, no flames, no gas line explosions, no massive cracks tearing through the earth. As far as they could tell, there were no plans to postpone or reschedule the festival that was supposed to take place the day after the competition. The landline and power disruptions were the worst setback. Only the medical equipment and a few lights were powered by emergency generators, and the majority of the city was in complete darkness. Emergency buildings, such as the hospital and the Pokemon Center, were operating on these generators. Additionally, their Pokenavs were now not receiving any reception for some reason. Additionally, Naruto, and Cute Ninja were unable to complete their on-hand rosters since neither the videophones nor the transporters were receiving electricity. It appeared that no attempt would be made to make repairs until after the festival, as the contest and the festival were just a few days away. As a result, their only option was to find something to occupy their time while they waited. When they arrived at the front counter, Naruto questioned Nurse Joy. "Is there anything to do in this town to pass the time?" Nurse Joy pondered for a while. "There's the Pokemon Regeneration Lab, The three of them tilted their heads and repeated. "Pokemon Regeneration Lab?" "It's a special laboratory where they bring extinct ancient Pokemon back to life with the help from fossils," said Nurse Joy. "It was built here because of the canyon." "What does the canyon have to do with the lab?" replied Naruto. As Nurse Joy went on, "Many fossils have been found in the canyon, and they're still finding more." "Oh?" The three of them nodded sympathetically. Getting in the nurse's face, Naruto inquired, "Do they give tours of the place?" The pinkette woman remarked, "They do, but they don't get a lot of visitors," as her friends pulled the blonde girl back. "Why not?" "The large majority of people in this city are really superstitious and stuck to tradition. They really believe that the ancient Pokemon are demons." "Oh, okay," the nurse thought. "Okay, now back to your first question," and groaned. "There's also the Pokemon temples, the Plaza Market, the mall, the shops and cafes on Water Avenue, the Singing Linen Spa, and Friendship Park." Muttering, "Well, come on," Naruto drew her brother and Cute Ninja closer. "Let's go." After escaping the blonde's hold, Cute Ninja inquired, "Where to first?" Naruto grinned and said, "Let's go see if we could get a tour of the lab, and whether or not we get the tour, we then go get something to eat, and after that we go check out the park." "You're just wondering if they'll give us some of their Pokemon, huh?" Naruto laughed. "No, I don't." "Right." At the archway entry into Demon City were 4 trainers. The other 2 were boys, and the other 2 were girls. One was wearing a full cowboy outfit, two were dressed in black apparel, and the final one was wearing rather ordinary trainer clothes. However, each of them had a dog tag. Soren looked down the street and said, "Are you sure that this is where the earthquake originated from, AJ?" Soren Silverbolt was a 13-year-old trainer from the Teak region and reared by his single mother. His emerald eyes and sparkling blue hair were gelled back. He was wearing an open blue aviator jacket over a light blue t-shirt with a lightning bolt with wings emblazoned on it. A bright yellow belt, blue and black fingerless gloves, blue aviator goggles over his head, white and blue sneakers, and a standard pair of pants were all on him. On his back hung his single-strap rucksack, while from his neck dangled a set of dog tags and locket. Speedy, his new Ninkata, sat on his shoulder. "Of course I am, Sugarcube." Winona's ears twitched before looking up and fastened in this direction, AJ said, readjusting her orange backpack, as she remembered the action of her Arcanine immediately before the tremor occurred. Applejack Apple, sometimes known as AJ, was a 13-year-old trainee from a family of apple producers in the Teak region. She had green eyes, 3 freckles on each cheek, and long blonde hair kept together by a crimson band a few inches from the tip. She wore a short, red and white plaid shirt, tied just below the breast while just 2 buttons were buttoned up, under a light brown duster coat. In addition to her dog tags and orange bandana around her neck, she wore black fingerless gloves, a modified cowboy belt with an apple-shaped buckle, thigh-high red socks, cowboy boots with 3 apples on them, a cowboy hat, and thigh-high denim shorts. Sitting on her shoulder was Spice, her new Starly. "I reckon it was caused by some large underground cavern collapsing since there ain't no fault here for thousands of miles," she replied, glancing back over her shoulder at the 2 other trainers who were riding with her and Soren. It had been a very calm time. "Hansel! Gretel! Y'all okay?" They nodded. A businessman named Rokuro Okujima adopted Hansel and Gretel Okujima, twin trainers from the island city of Roanapur City in the Corral region, when they were 13 years old, almost 14. They had delicate violet eyes and silver hair, Gretel's long with a black ribbon and Hansel's short. Given the chilly weather, Gretel accessorized her black Gothic Lolita ensemble with a white trainer belt and black gloves. Hansel was dressed in a black trench coat, black sneakers, long socks, black cargo shorts, a dark gray trainer belt, and a white t-shirt. Hansel's backpack looked like a light gray knapsack, whereas Gretel's was a messenger bag in a soft lavender color. Additionally, each of them wore a pair of dog tags. On Hansel's shoulder was a minion named Sparks, while a Plusle named Garnet was on Gretel's shoulder, given to them as starters by their father. "Are ya sure?" inquired AJ. "Ya two are usually really chatty." "Yep," Hansel said with a nod. "We're all right." Applejack was not convinced. "But it's been over a year since we began our journey and we haven't contacted Papa at all," Gretel said. "All right," Soren interrupted her. "Let's get to the Pokemon Center so you can call your dad. Applejack can call her brother and I'll call my mom." The twins' eerie smiles accompanied the 4 trainers' dash toward the Pokemon Center, nearly running into 3 trainers who had just emerged from inside. A blue-haired, green-eyed trainer shouted, "Sorry, excuse me," as he and 3 other trainers nearly ran into Naruto, and Cute Ninja, nearly knocking the Ninkata off his shoulder. He was asked by Naruto, "What's your hurry?" "We need to get to the Pokemon Center to make some very important phone calls," the girl with the cowboy hat added. "Well, sorry for saying this, but the earthquake caused blackout and the Pokemon Center's emergency backup generators are only powering up the healing pods and every bit of medical machinery," Rita intervened. "So you're out of luck there." "Ah, man," the blue-haired boy murmured. "This sucks, and I was gonna call my mom." The cowgirl removed her hat and stated, "I was gonna call my family and see how they are doing at the farm." And we were gonna call Papa, the silver-haired twins simultaneously stated. Nerda mumbled, "Yes, sorry," and laughed awkwardly. "The video phones won't be operational for a few days," Cute Ninja continued. She scratched the back of her neck and grinned. "Thanks for the warning," the green-eyed girl said. "So where are you three going?" "We're going to go check out the Pokemon Regeneration Lab and see if we could get a tour of the place," Naruto remarked with a nearly excited squeal. "Oh, can we go with you?" the blue-haired boy requested, then turned to his blonde buddy. "AJ, can we go with them?" The white-haired twins joined in the pleading and gave her puppy dog eyes. "Yeah," they said. "Can we go too, please?" The cowgirl sighed after twitching her mouth and eyebrows. She sounded as like she was gritting her teeth when she said, "I don't see why not, but first let's get a room and leave our stuff there." "Yay!" The white-haired kids raised their arms into the air in victory. "Quit changing your personalities, you little psychos!" the brunette boy shouted. "It's creepy!" With pleading eyes, the girl pouted and said, "I'm sorry," and her plusle followed suit. "Please don't be angry." She was bopped on the head by the yelling child. "You should already know that that's not going to work on me unless it's AJ doing it." The cowgirl snarled, "Ain't gonna happen, now come on," as she and her party passed Nerda, Naruto, and Cute Ninja. The four trainers vanished inside the Pokemon Center, leaving the three-eyed ninja village town trainers to gaze in that direction for a few seconds. They were in a bit of shock. They were debating whether to simply depart or wait for them. Additionally, a moderate autumn breeze caused a tumbleweed to literally tumble across the Pokemon Center's walkway. "That was weird," Nerda said, laughing and massaging the back of his head. "Yeah," said Cute Ninja, rubbing her cheek with a little laugh. "We've been meeting a lot of weird trainers lately, huh?" "Dang it," said Naruto, surprising both Nerda and Cute Ninja. With trepidation, Cute Ninja questioned, "Is something the matter?" "In our rush to get our Pokemon here, and the chaos of the earthquake, we forgot to get a room," Naruto replied, shaking her head and running back inside. After grunting and face-palming, Nerda and Cute Ninja followed. "Stupid." The 7 trainers were heading toward Friendship Park, which was on the outskirts of town, 2 hours after their strange introduction. Naruto was really dissatisfied. When they had reached the regeneration lab north of the city, they realized that it was closed to the public at the moment. When she questioned the scientist who was taking a cigarette break, he told them that the lab and the dome, which housed all of the regenerated Pokemon in a synthetic setting, had been damaged by the earthquake. Additionally, the worker told them that the repair will be completed within a week at the latest. For the dome, anyway. Both structures experienced minimal, superficial damage and needed to be fixed right away to prevent further damage. And with a frustrated snarl, Naruto turned around and strode away from the lab. With a heavy sigh, Nerdu, Cute Ninja, and the other 4 trainers followed her. They left the lab to see the visitor's viewpoint in the canyon. They could see nearly the whole canyon through the telescopes. They saw some water Pokemon swimming and leaping in the very broad, glistening, gently running river at its bottom. They saw an excavation site in the distance, and it looked like the archaeologists there were re-establishing their camp, which had probably been destroyed by the earthquake. Large rocks that had fallen into the center of the camp were also being removed. The trainers chatted and introduced themselves appropriately as they surveyed the terrain via the telescopes for over half an hour. When the bellies of Nerdo, Soren, and Hansel rumbled, they departed. After trekking for more than 15 minutes, they finally came to a cafe that allowed Pokemon, and they each let go the little Pokemon they had. Cherry, Naruto, Grove, and Cute Ninja released their Iliumize and Flutter, while Nerdo produced his Vulpix. Applejack, Soren, Hansel, and Gretel already had Pokemon out. They reminisced about their childhoods and travels over lunch. As they sat there, the 3 of them realized that they were making a lot of friends, especially people from beyond their area. The 7 trainers decided to explore the stores after an oddly lengthy lunch before going to Friendship Park. Since she left her capsules and seals at home, Cute Ninja bought some new ones for her competitions. She had to borrow one from a coordinator who had 5 ribbons at her previous competition. For his Abra Eclipse, Ndu was able to locate a twisted spoon. Back home, Naruto picked up a few items for Sunset. After finishing their purchases, they made their way to the park. Near the city's southern boundary, Friendship Park was a Pokemon-friendly park. The 20-acre plot of land was naturally landscaped, entirely gated off, and only accessible through one of the 3 guarded gates. The park had very severe rules. It was forbidden to fight. To enter, visitors need to have at least 1 Pokemon. Both the trainer and the Pokemon will be permanently expelled if the Pokemon exhibits hostile tendencies. Amity Square in the Sinnoh region is the most well-known of the parks that Naruto, and Cute Ninja have heard of in other areas. Many of them posted a list of permitted Pokemon, primarily popular little and adorable Pokemon like Buniri and Pikachu. Their best chance of getting in, assuming there was a restricted list, appeared to be Flutter the Illumise, Ricker the Skitty, Cherry the Vulpix, and Brawler the Shrimish, which, oddly enough, was regarded as a charming Pokemon, since Han was no longer there and Heart was already a Lopunny. Since the other 4 trainers already had their little Pokemon out and on their shoulders, it's likely that they were considering the same thing. When they arrived, they discovered that the Pokemon they could use were not strictly limited. Since even well-behaved Pokemon could accidentally cause damage, only very huge Pokemon like Snorlax, Steelix, and Gyarados were prohibited. They released their available Pokemon when they discovered a suitable location near a tiny cluster of trees with a sizable crystal-clear pond just a short distance away. Only 4 of Naruto's 5 Pokemon, Vulpix, Vibrava, Umbreon, and Lovedisk, were released. He did not let his aggressive Shrimish out of the park because he did not want to get expelled. Absol, Grimer, Turtwig, Venomoth, and Camerupt were all released by Naruto. Since the Registeel was a large Pokemon, and the Cute Ninja did not feel safe letting it out, she left it in its Pokeball and instead unleashed her Illumise, Skitty, and Clefairy. Applejack summoned a Rapidash, Arcanine, Gardevoir, Leafeon, and Nidoking to accompany her Starly. To join his Nincada outside, Soren let go of a Wingull, Nidoqueen, Shelgon, Golade, and Typhlosion. Gretel released a Carnivine and Milotic, while Hansel only produced a Cacturne and Scizor to join their Plusle and Minun. "Whoa," said Naruto and Naruko, nearly stunned by their new pal's Pokemon collection. "Cool!" Something attracted Cute Ninja's attention, and the 3 water-type Pokemon rushed into the water as if it were a signal. "So," yawned Soren, "what are you 3 doing in this town?" "We're here for Cute Ninja's contest and maybe we'll stick around for the festival." Naruko yawned. "It's the day after the contest." The twins with gray hair asked at the same time, "What's the festival for anyway?" With a thoughtful, Naruto crossed his arms. Naruto wrinkled his nose and thought more deeply. "Professor Sarutobi told me about it the day before we left town. Now what was it again? He said it was called the Autumn Victory Festival. They celebrate some ancient victory over, what was it again, the demons of the underworld. Yeah, I think that's it." Naruko stomped with a fist in the air and declared, "I don't care much about history, but as long as there's food and it's delicious, I'm there." "Yeah!" Hansel, Gretel, Soren, and Naruto all pumped their fists in accord. When she noticed Cute Ninja gazing while everyone was talking about food, the girl wearing the cowboy hat stopped laughing. "May I help ya?" Cute Ninja said. After nearly leaping. "Did a boy named Jason give you those dog tags?" The 4 trainers nodded after glancing down and then back up. Holding up her own pair, Cute Ninja said, "I thought you looked familiar," and encouraged her companions to follow suit. Jason showed us your picture when we were in Stealth City for a tag battle tournament and had to deal with an evil hound hour. The green-eyed boy rested against a tree and said, That's where you three met him? Yeah, said the adorable ninja. And now my sister has a crush on Lance, Naruto casually remarked. As they strained for oxygen, Applejack, Hansel, and Gretel began to cough and spit out the water they had been drinking. With a hint of laughter, Soren asked, Is that right? No, I don't, cried Naruto. You're wearing his. Naruto halted to point after noticing something. What's that? Cute Ninja started to say, What's wa? But stopped when she noticed what Naruto was pointing at. It was a black painted wrought iron fence that was concealed by some big trees. As soon as the other trainers noticed it, they immediately hurried to investigate. They saw a few things when they got there. There was simply a gate. It was erected over a wide area, it had signs all over it, and the top was coiled with both barbed and razor wire. There were no trees inside, and a walkway led from the gate to a huge hole in the center. The sign nearest the gate said, The Gateway. Naruto squinted at the highly tarnished metal. Huh! There was more to read since Soren discovered another sign that said the same thing but was less rusted. The door to the underworld, where demons that feast on the flesh of men reside. In ancient times, these demons threatened many of the surrounding small villages that would one day combine to make up Demon City. Through the efforts of the 5 guardians, that the land was saved. Okay, that's weird. I think the underworld they speak of is some sort of underground cavern, Applejack remarked, placing her palm on her chin as she pondered. Staring at the hole, Cute Ninja replied, I'm going to have to agree with you. Soren mumbled, I bet the demons are actually Pokemon, while he perused the remaining signs. We'll call Siegfried and tell him about this when the power's back. With a sigh, the cowgirl said, A right, Sugar Cube, and turned to leave. The IP ain't gonna be happy about this. The silver-haired twins responded, Tell me about it, and trailed behind her. The gang tried to temporarily forget what they had just witnessed when they returned to their Pokemon's location. They ate some food they had previously purchased and set up a picnic blanket. As they finished getting ready to go, they stopped to take a closer look at a neighboring shrub that was rustling. A Vulpix abruptly dropped out of it. Cute Ninja said, Whoa, and sprinted in the direction of the Pokemon. It's a Vulpix! It looks injured, Soren remarked after examining it. And gleaming, Naruto said. Then let's take it to the Pokemon Center. Cute Ninja picked up the Vulpix after everyone nodded. After putting their Pokemon back in their Pokeballs, they took off running. They missed the girl and Espion observing them as they hurried to locate the exit. This isn't good. The guard stopped Naruto, Cute Ninja, and their 4 new pals as they reached one of the gates. Naruto nearly ran into the poor woman as they hilariously skidded to a stop. Then Naruto fell face first against the guard booth after tripping over an elevated cobblestone. Ow! She exclaimed. Soren suppressed a giggle and asked, Had a nice trip? Naruto slipped down the wall, growling, Shut up! The woman shouted, Why are you running? It looked like the woman was in her mid-20s. She had turquoise eyes and short dark brown hair. She wore a uniform that resembled a police uniform, except that it was dark green rather than blue, much like all the other guards at the other gates. She was given a brown zip-up jacket with her name on the right side because the weather was growing cooler. She also had 3 Pokemon, 2 sets of handcuffs, a tiny can of pepper spray, a baton, and a holstered taser. The Vulpix was held up by adorable Ninja. We found it in the park, so we're taking it to the Pokemon Center. Oh my! Exclaimed the guard. That looks like Kogain from the Fire Temple. When she calmed down and stroked her face, Naruto said, "You know this Vulpix?" The guard replied quite abruptly, "Yes," with a strong, irate aura. "Take her to the Pokemon Center, and when she's healed up, return her immediately to the Fire Temple or suffer the wrath of the townsfolk." Yelling in terror, the 7 young trainers said, "Yes, ma'am," and vanished in a flash. The guard then grimaced and sighed deeply. "Of all the places she could have ended up, she appeared here at the park," he said. "And after a week of looking for her." "It was a total surprise," said a girl behind the woman dressed in a Miko attire. The woman jerked back and exclaimed, "Ah," before beginning to bow repeatedly. "Lady Cheyenne! I didn't see you there." "That's okay," the Miko said, gesturing with her hand. Wearing the typical red and white Miko outfit, complete with straw sandals, Cheyenne appeared to be a preteen. She had dark violet eyes and very pale brownish blonde hair. Her red hakama had 3 clips on it, each of which held 2 poke balls. The Fire Temple emblem, which resembled a swirl of flames on top of it, was located above the right breast of her pure Haori. She was carrying a big wicker basket with some just bought food in her left hand. Seated at her feet, gazing up at the guard woman, was her espion, Ban, wearing a lovely pink bow around its neck. She continued to bend and apologize, suggesting that the woman did not hear her. The young priestess muttered as Cheyenne and her espion sidestepped and left, with a crooked smile, a heavy sigh, and a sweat drop hanging from her forehead. Cheyenne followed the 7 trainers as they hurried to the Pokemon Center, concealing her presence using the espion's psychic skills. Cheyenne was only 20 feet behind them when they arrived at their location. The assistant to Nurse Joy said, "Hello, how may I be of assistance?" to the 7 trainers. "Yes," said Cute Ninja, who took the initiative to set the fox on the counter with gentle care. "We found this Vulpix at the park." "Oh!" exclaimed the young man behind the desk, astonished by the gleaming fire type's numerous wounds rather than its peculiar coloring, which didn't interest him at all. "According to Cute Ninja, the park guard told us where it lives. We were hoping you could heal it before we returned it." The man snapped, "Yes, of course," and removed the wounded Vulpix from the Hyuga's embrace. "I'll be back as quick as I can." He then scampered away and vanished behind 2 swinging doors that had a syringe light-up sign above them. "I hope the Temple Donna think we stole that poor critter and have us thrown in the Huskow," stated Applejack. Nerdu and Naruto cocked their heads in perplexity at the cowgirl's remark, asking, "The what?" Soren interpreted, "She means jail," and then went to sit down. The others came after. They shared stories about their life with one another while they waited. Applejack discussed her upbringing on an apple orchard, how her parents chose to travel the world, and how she and her younger sister, Apple Loom, were essentially reared by their grandmother and brother, Big Macintosh. Regarding her school pals, how her brother returned from his honeymoon the same day she set off on her adventure, how she got to know Jason and the rest of the group, and of her hope to eventually start her own farm or take over the one she currently owns. After his father left, Soren described the difficulties of growing up with just his mother. Because they talked about their lives, the blonde twins felt a connection to him. Before starting his adventure, he was an athlete in school. Spitfire was a girl he had known as a child. He had apparently left his village on the same day as Applejack. They have been traveling together ever since an accident later that day. After attending an airshow as part of a school field trip, he became encouraged to pursue his dream of becoming a pilot. No information was left by Hansel and Gretel. They described every detail of their history. How they were assassins for one of the most powerful criminals in their hometown. How Balalaika, the mean lady, dispatched her men to murder them. The man who took them in and adopted them saved them before they fell into a trap. Rokuro Rock Okajima was the man they praised. For a little more than a year, he had reared them in secret. He gave them the Minin, Plusle, and Pokemon, and they reported on their progress thus far. Once they were finished, the turn went to Naruto, and Cute Ninja. They were unaware that they were being watched when they told their life experiences. The attendant reappeared bringing a gurney with the strangely colored Vulpix after they had finished telling them how their voyage was going thus far. Cute Ninja hurried to the gurney and inquired, "How's she doing?" "She's doing fine, she's just sleeping now," the father said with a smile. "I gave her some antibiotics for her fever." The man reached into his pocket as Cute Ninja picked up the Vulpix. "When you do find the Vulpix's trainer, I want you to give him, or her, this." He held out 2 pieces of paper. Naruto picked up the papers and examined them. One was a prescription for medication, and the other was a $1,000 fine. He put them in his pocket after that. In a whisper, later, Naruto guided the group out of the Pokemon Center to find the Fire Temple. On their way to the Fire Temple, they dashed out into the street. Soren was frowning and glaring at nothing in particular the entire time. They were all aware that he was lost in thought, so they weren't shocked when he abruptly halted. Applejack glanced at him and asked, "What is it?" He sighed in grumbling. "We can't wait for the power to be restored to inform the IP about what we found out," he murmured. The cowgirl pushed, and he headed toward the regeneration lab and said, "I'm going to see if they'll let me use one of their phones. Come on, Hansel." The 2 boys left without saying anything more. Applejack grinned and sneered before turning to face the others. "Let go! We've got a Pokemon to the return." Naruto and Naruto exclaimed, "Yeah!" and raised their hands in the air. "Believe it!" "I wonder what could have happened? I mean, in Demon City?" With a sigh, John looked back at his traveling partner through the glass of the train compartment. He turned back to look out the window and said, "I don't know, but that's why we're going there to figure out. But first we're going to meet up with Daisuke and Hinako." Ruby Rose and John Arc were traveling to Lightning City, a city beside a lake, for John's competition and Ruby's gym battle. However, while they were in a remote Pokemon Center that morning, Jason called them. They had been asked to go look into Demon City by their team commander. When his pals arrived in town after a long trip, Jason made it obvious that he wanted them to call him since he was worried about them. He didn't care that Applejack and her crew might have been preoccupied with anything else when they didn't call in, even though he knew they were on their way there. The professor from the Star region then called him to inform him that 3 of his trainees had been cut off from a phone call. Jason told John and Ruby that they were the newest team members when they asked why he had sent them to check on complete strangers. They were now en route to meet up with 2 other helpful buddies. John Arc was a trainer from the Unova region who was 13 or about 14 years old. His eyes were deep blue and his blonde hair was disheveled. His outfit consisted of a white t-shirt with a black hoodie over it, basic blue trousers, gray fingerless gloves, black sneakers, a brown trainer belt, and a white backpack with a single strap. When it came time to embark on his adventure, John, who was 5 at the time, had decided he wanted to be a Pokemon coordinator. The sole issue was that Unova lacked contest halls. When he was 10 years old, his family had a vacation in the Hoenn, which gave him his opportunity. Kanto's Professor Oak was in town. After he assisted in saving the small fire type from an aspiring thief, Oak awarded him Charmander. John packed his belongings and set out on his journey as a coordinator after receiving his parents' assent. He was unable to obtain his 5th ribbon in time, so he was unable to attend the Hoenn Grand Festival. The young Arc went to Sinnoh when the Hoenn region's season ended. He advanced to the Grand Festival but was defeated in the decisive match. John accidentally boarded the wrong ship, which was sailing to the Zodiac region, with the intention of competing in Kanto next. Due to his limited funds, he chose to participate in the competitions in that area. He met Ruby Rose, his traveling partner, there. He was late for his next contest and couldn't get in because of the first encounter. She apologized when they reconnected at the Pokemon Center. She had been adhered to him like glue ever since that day. John and Ruby hopped upon Ruby's Arcanine after leaving the Pokemon Center. They hurried to Lightning City, their hair blowing back in the breeze. In less than 10 minutes, they completed the nearly 30-mile journey. They could have arrived in less than 5 minutes, but a month after they first met, Ruby discovered the hard way that John had a slight motion sickness issue. The train was prepared to leave when they arrived. As the train began to move, they dashed to the ticket counter, purchased their tickets, and hurried to board it. They released their little Pokemon as soon as they discovered some chairs that were empty. Together with his Skorupi and Aaron, which he had substituted for his Charizard and Grumpig, and her Mareep and Poochyena, which she brought in to replace her Torterra and Sharpedo, those were their EVs. Ruby Rose was a trainer from the Blanco region, which does not yet have its own league, and she was 12.5 years old. She has silver eyes and short black and red hair, black pantyhose, black and red boots, a red hooded cape, or cloak, held up by 2 cross-shaped silver pins, a black belt with metal pieces on the left side that resembled bullets, and a pouch on the right side that was secured by a rose-shaped buckle, and a black and red butterfly dress with red lace frills underneath the skirt were all on her. She had the red and black backpack resting on the seat next her. She aspires to be an excellent trainer like her late mother, having been raised by her uncle, a teacher in her hometown. She obtained her trainer's license at the age of 10. Yang, her overly protective older sister, came to visit and bring her to the neighboring Dragon Cove docks. They boarded a ship to Valhalla City from there. She managed to catch the first train out of the Pokemon Center by sneaking away before the sun came out. She was given Lucy the Turtwig as her starter when she arrived in Plains Town, where the professor resided. She met John approximately a week after turning 11. She was traveling along a very steep ridge on a very small trail. Ruby went over the edge because she was too preoccupied reading a map to pay attention to where she was going. She was hauled back up to the walkway by a set of arms before she fell too far. When she finally turned to face her savior, she beheld the most attractive boy she had ever seen, with short blonde hair and sparkling blue eyes that glistened in the sunlight. He was essentially her knight in shining armor, and she could almost feel the sparkles floating around him. After assisting her to stand, he released his grip, looked at his watch, and then he became frightened and fled. Later, when she saw him again in the next town, she was sad that she couldn't participate in the competition. Ruby apologized, introduced herself appropriately, and then adhered herself to him like glue. After 3 hours of travel, they felt the train slowing down, causing their body to jerk. John's gaze was fixed on the window. "We're pulling into Genkai Town." Then he raised his arms, stretched, and arched back. Some bones snapped back into place, and there were even a few pops. With a grunt and a sigh, Ruby also stretched and flexed, flaunting her growing body, which made John flush and turn away. However, Ruby did not overlook this. Placing her head on his shoulder, she sat down next him. It would be an understatement to say that they liked one another. Despite being 2 years apart in age, they had a slight attraction to one another that was steadily building after traveling with for more than a year. Since their window faced the platform, they could see a sizable crowd waiting when the train arrived at the station and came to a stop. Ruby looked around for their companions and said, "I wonder where they're at. This is where they are supposed to get on. I think I see. No, wait, that ain't them." They were still scanning when the door slammed open, and they jumped in surprise. "Dude!"